So the fact that you're raising a child and the child is making mistakes is not a reason for the child to be shamed, blamed, or abused. Because we are the adults. Adults are the ones that should be responsible for a child. So you don't put a lot of responsibility on a child, expecting a lot from a child, which is what is happening, especially in Africa, in African culture, the way we raise kids. And it's very important. We, as adults now, we need to start thinking what ways were we raised by our parents that we need to start changing and correcting, so we don't raise our own children in that way. Because you have to ensure that if you were raised and you needed to go through therapy to feel better, you have to be conscious enough not to raise kids that would need therapy in the future. Good evening, everyone. Hello, good evening, everyone. Welcome to my live session. I'm Adeola Adeyemi. I'm a consultant psychiatrist and a mental fitness coach. I'm the founder of Talk Mental Health. So I need you to tell me your name and where you're joining from. Thank you for joining. Welcome to my live session. Happy New Month. Happy Independence Day, Nigeria. Please tell me your name and where you're joining from. And also let me know if you can hear me loud and clear. Thank you Uzo, thank you Ramsey, thank you T Toms. But please write your name in the chat box and where you're joining from. Hi Joseph from Kenya, thank you for joining. I believe you can hear me, right? Happy New Month to you. I hope the last 9 months of the year have been an amazing one. Hi, Dr. Jenny. Thanks for joining. Please tell me your name and where you're joining from. Happy Independence Day, Nigeria. Yeah, I'm a Nigerian. I live in the UK though, but I'm a Nigerian. I'm proudly Nigerian. And today I thought, okay, I'm putting on green, even though it's not a shade of green, but it's still green. So yeah. Today we're going to be speaking on this topic, breaking generational trauma. But I don't know if everyone here knows me. Dr. Adeola. I'm a psychiatrist, I'm a psychologist, I'm a mental fitness coach, I'm the founder of Talk Mental Health. And at Talk Mental Health, what we do is we create awareness about mental health. We teach people skills that would help them be proactive about their mental well-being. And we let you know how you can improve your productivity, because we believe that there is no health without mental health. So if you're not mentally okay, if you're not mentally stable, you will not be able to function well in all spheres of life, whether in your relationships, in your career, in everything you do, you will struggle. And that's why this organization, my organization, or my mission, or my vision at Talk Mental Health is to keep teaching people, pushing out the gospel of mental health, as I fondly call it, and helping people to become more intentional about their mental health. All right, I'm a fan of being preventive, using preventive measures to take care of yourself rather than waiting for you to break down before you get help. So that's why we're here today. We're talking about breaking generational trauma. So that's some basic introduction of myself. So I would like to meet everyone here. I don't know if you all follow me. I could recognize Dr. Jenny, but I don't know everyone. So I'd like to meet you before we dive into today's topic, breaking generational trauma. All right, so tell me your name and where you're joining from. I saw Josephine. I'm sorry, Joseph is from Kenya. Thank you. I know we have people from different parts of the world that usually would join in on our live session. So I'm really, really grateful for you all joining my session today. So I'm just going to dive in to today's topic. All right, I know that we might understand what trauma is, but let me just ask, what does trauma mean to you? What is trauma to you? We're talking about breaking generational trauma. I need you to just put in a chat box. What does trauma mean to you? Just one word to describe trauma. Okay, I'm a psychiatrist, I'm a psychologist, and I understand how trauma can impact on one's well-being, mental well-being and ability to function. It could impact on how we relate with others. It could impact on how we raise our kids. Being exposed to past traumatic events and all, it could cause a lot of things that would basically affect one's life. So I just want us to be on the same page. I want to know what your understanding of trauma is. Maybe just one or two words to describe trauma. What do you understand by trauma? What is trauma to you? Can you please put it in the comment box? And just to be sure that you're all hearing me, put in the comment box what you understand by trauma, and let me know if you can hear me loud and clear. Hi, Oluwatolani. Thank you for joining. Yeah, hi, Asabi. Thank you for joining. So, I'm waiting for a response. What is trauma to us? Dr. Jenny, thank you. Trauma is an emotional wound or pain. Fantastic. Thank you. Emotional wound or pain. Thank you. Luwatolani says total psychological damage. Thank you very much. Yeah, those are very good definition of trauma. Yeah, trauma. And I know that we understand what physical trauma is. Trauma is also could be physical as well, but we're talking about emotional trauma right now, and I like those definitions that Dr. Jenny and Oluwatolani had given. So emotional wound or pain, total psychological damage. Yeah. So yes, fantastic. Any other person that would be willing to give before I define what trauma is? Yeah, any other person? All right. So trauma is, simply put, an emotional response to a distressing experience. I just don't want to give you one long psychological definition that will bore you. I want to keep this as short as possible. We want to break generational trauma, right? So I just need to define it, because some people don't even know what trauma is. Trauma is an emotional response emotional response to a distressing experience. So when we say response, it just means that it is how do I put it? It's person dependent. Because it is response, it's person dependent. It means that if something is a response to a distressing event, everybody could go through a distressing event, and some people might decide not to respond to it. Emotional response to a distressing event. I just want that to ring in our minds. Emotional response, because some people might decide. That's why sometimes when people go through, a large number of people go through the same kind of distressing event, some people would become traumatized, whereas others wouldn't become traumatized, because trauma is an emotional response. I wish we could see face to face so that you can echo response. But if you are here, if you are following me, just put response, emotional response, emotional response, emotional response, just so that I know that you're following me. I need us to understand this and begin to reflect on our lives to see if we've been through trauma. Because sometimes when we hear the word trauma, we might think it's something big and huge, but trauma could be anything. As long as you are responding to it, then it is trauma. As long as you are responding to it emotionally, no matter how trivial the event is, as simple as someone hissing at you or someone ignoring you, as long as you have an emotional response to it and it impacts on your well-being, then it becomes trauma. You're traumatized, basically. That's just what it is. So some of the things that we try to overlook might just be that we are having a trauma response. I mean, we're being traumatized and we don't even know. Thank you, Beatrice. I'm glad that you're here as well. All right. So trauma is an emotional response to a distressing event. So it could be abuse, and we have different types of abuse. It could be physical abuse, it could be sexual abuse, it could be financial abuse, it could be psychological abuse, it could be neglect. A lot of abuse. There are different types of abuse. Let's not go into what abuse is today. but abuse. It could be financial hardship, it could be harassment, it could be bullying. So, cyberbullying, any form of bullying whatsoever. It could be as trivial as someone not responding to you when you call them, or not picking your calls or something. It could be that. So when that thing keeps happening over and over again, it could impact on you. And it could be as big as insecurity issues that is happening all over the world, especially in Nigeria, robbery, police issues, all those insecurity issues, war, terrorism, and all of that. So that seems to be like something significant. Yes, all those times that we had Boko Haram issues and yes, these are insecurity issues. But aside from those big ones, so war, accident, and all, there are subtle emotional issues that we go through that we may not necessarily see it as the fact that we are traumatized, but we are actually traumatized because we are responding to this. So it could be harassment at the place of work. Someone keeps harassing you. You have a boss that is always complaining about you, someone harassing you sexually. These are examples of trauma. These are examples of trauma, especially if when you now wake up in the morning, you want to go to work, you are always afraid, like, I'm going to work today. You're already responding to what you are to expect at work. So that's a form of trauma, emotional response to a distressing event. And I need us to understand is that whenever we are traumatized, sometimes we tend to blame ourselves, but it's not your fault that you've been through all that you've been, especially as in the early years, because many of us were raised in an environment where we are exposed to a lot of forms of trauma, that perhaps wasn't seen as trauma. It wasn't, those things that we're exposed to were not seen or believed. They were believed that these are ways by which we could raise a child, and this is the right thing to do with a child. A child has done something wrong, you whoop the child. The child will be, you beat the child. So that's more like a physical abuse, especially when there are physical injuries on the child. So yes, physical abuse, sometimes neglect. Sometimes some people went through absent parents. Parents are not there for them. Parents couldn't trust them, and they could not even confide in their own parents. So a lot of people went through that kind of upbringing, and we've normalized it. Like, it's normal now. They were raising us, and they wanted the best for us. We were you were very stubborn, or you were a difficult child. A child is always a child. A child is always a child, and a child will always model the people that they live around. I mean, whoever is raising them, be it their parents or their caregivers. So the child would model after whoever is raising the child. So you can never blame a child for his or her behavior in this sense. So don't get me out of context. What I'm saying is that whatever it is, you raise a child, you teach a child, you help them grow, even when they make mistakes, because they'll definitely make mistakes. It's not a reason for them to be abused. It's not a reason for them to be shamed. It's not a reason for them to be blamed. So the fact that you're raising a child and the child is making mistakes is not a reason for the child to be shamed, blamed, or abused. Because we are the adults. Adults are the ones that should be responsible for a child. So you don't put a lot of responsibility on a child, expecting a lot from a child, which is what is happening, especially in Africa, in African culture, the way we raise kids. And it's very important. We, as adults now, we need to start thinking what ways were we raised by our parents that we need to start changing and correcting, so we don't raise our own children in that way. Because you have to ensure that if you were raised and you needed to go through therapy to feel better, you have to be conscious enough not to raise kids that would need therapy in the future. You have to. And it starts from you understanding what trauma is. Because sometimes when someone is successful and everybody sees they're successful because physically or in the way they see it, everybody feel, oh, everything is fine with this person. But you don't know what they're going through internally. And that's one of the irony of mental health issues. People struggle within. People are struggling, but they can't speak. They can't come to say, this is what I'm going through. The trauma is there. They are passing it on, even onto their own kids. They're raising their kids in that way, whether it's consciously or subconsciously, but they are not even aware. So it's important for us to know that there's something called trauma, and trauma is your emotional response to distressing experience, whether the person is aware that they're doing it or not, whether they did it intentionally or not, whether it's in the past or in the present. You have to be aware that there's something called trauma. I hope you're following me. I hope I'm going somewhere and I need you to follow me. If this is making sense to you, if you're following me, please put in the comment box. And if you have any questions, let me know. Write your questions in the comment box. I'm here to answer your questions. My mission or my aim for today's live is to ensure that we don't pass on the trauma to the next generation. We don't pass on what we have experienced. We don't pass it on to our kids, to our offsprings. We don't raise kids or children that would require a lot of therapy in the future. We need to be intentional about reparenting ourselves to ensure that we learn how to do things the right way, so that we don't project our own feelings and insecurities to our children. So that's my aim for today's live. And thankfully, it's Nigerian Independence Day. If you follow me on my social media handle at Talk Mental Health, talkmental.health, I put up a post, I think the flyer for today's live, to say happy 63rd Independence Day to Nigeria. Are we truly independent? Are we truly independent? We just need to ask ourselves that question. Are we truly independent? So if not, whose fault is it? Is it the government's fault? Is it our parents' fault? Is it our culture? Is it ourselves? So at this point, we need to start reflecting on how to break free from generational, trauma, because we keep passing it on. And if care is not taken, it's just going to continue from one generation to another, and nobody's going to break that chain of trauma. All right. So, I'm a psychiatrist, and I like to talk about facts. It's very important. What researchers have said, evidence-based practices. What happens to our brain when we are traumatized? Yeah. Thank you very much, Ambassador for Christ. Yes, ma'am, following. Yeah, Victoria, all of the option. Fantastic. Thank you. What happens to the brain when traumatized? So we all have our brains. As long as you're here, I believe your brain is functioning. Thank you for joining again. The brain is very complex. It's a complex organ, okay? And it's also a very fantastic organ. God is so amazing that He gave us this brain that controls everything that we do. And that's why I love brain health. I love what I do, because I know that if you're not mentally stable, if your mind is not working perfectly, if your brain is not functioning well, there's no way you can function in any other aspect of your life. Because the brain, as it is up there, controls everything we do. How I see, the way I'm talking to you and you're able to hear me, it's because there are some signals that is sent to some nerves in my ears, that is making it to make sense to you that this is what I'm saying. If I start to speak in another language, you may not understand me because it's different from, that I'm speaking, but you won't understand because you don't know that language. So the way we understand language is because there's a part of our brain called hippocampus that stores memory. Stores a lot of memory of some of the things that we do. We have the language centers in our brain that helps us to speak, helps us to talk, So the brain is just so amazing. Different parts of the brain with different functions. So once there's a problem with any part of the brain, then it starts to affect how we function, basically. That's what it is. All right. And it is very important for us to know that whenever we are exposed to anybody that is exposed to chronic stress or trauma, if you continue to get yourself exposed to trauma and chronic stress, it changes the brain. It changes the way you think, the way you perceive information, the way you feel. It just changes everything. It's not because you want to change, it's because your brain is structured to adapt to any kind of change that you face. So if you are exposed to a very traumatic experience, for instance, maybe there's war, accident and all, the brain is wired to protect you. So the brain will ensure that there's a lot of it tries to protect you. So you're so afraid, you want to run away from that site of danger. You're right. So, and then there's this part of the brain called the hippocampus that stores the memory. Your amygdala, another part of the brain. Let me not bore you, but we have amygdala, we have the hippocampus, and also the prefrontal cortex. Those three parts. Please don't forget. So the amygdala is the one that reacts. So whenever you're faced with threats, yes, there's something threatening here. The amygdala makes you so afraid. It helps you to want to run away from it, because if you don't feel that fear, you might feel, oh, a lion coming in is not fear, nothing to fear about, and the lion will definitely hurt you. So, and this part of the brain called the hippocampus will now store it that anytime you see a lion or anything hairy or anything that makes a sound like lion, or maybe there's a music that was playing when the lion appeared. So anytime you hear all those kind of signals, or we call them triggers, the same reaction, the same way you felt on that day that you saw the real lion, you feel the same thing, and your brain, your body will start reacting, your body, you start hyperventilating, you have your heart rate will start moving fast, you start becoming fearful just because you have sensed something similar, more like we call it trigger. All right, so that's what happens. So once you're exposed to trauma, you don't need to be exposed to the same type of trauma anymore. You just need a cue. A cue. What do I call it? A cue. A cue could be a music playing. It could be a fragrance. For instance, people that are exposed to sexual abuse, it could just be the look of the person. It could be anyone that looks like the person, a male figure or a female figure. A fragrance or a music playing in the background. I've heard of people that will say, oh, somebody that they love used to like this kind of music. So anytime they listen to that music, they don't want to listen to that music again, because it reminds them of the person, because the person has passed away. So they don't want to even, listen to that music anymore, because the music has been associated with that incident, that distressing event. That's how trauma works. That's how our brain is wired. Just imagine. Reflect on what I said. How much, if you're now exposed to a lot of traumatizing events, a lot of traumatizing, experiences and events here, and anybody that passes around has that become a cue, what would that do to you? It will affect your mental well-being. It will affect your relationship. It will affect how you see people. Someone that is just neutral, you might not want to relate with them. And it might just be that person that will take you to the next level in your life. But because of that trauma that you passed through, you just hate this person. You don't know why. It's because of trauma. It's because of trauma. And we need to begin to understand. Because sometimes, because of what we've been through, we really don't know that we are actually responding to trauma. All our behavior, all the way we relate, the things we do could be trauma responses. And the way we pass this, behavior of ourselves, the way we pass this behavior to our offsprings is very important. Remember, the topic is breaking generational trauma. Because I'm just wondering, where is it going to end? So if, let's say, for instance, our parents were traumatized and they raised us the way they felt was best, and then we're traumatized and we're raising our kids, based on the trauma that's been passed to us, who is going to end this trauma? How do we break this trauma? Because you need to first of all understand that you're traumatized. You just first of all need to know that you're traumatized. And I'm going to give you some examples of what trauma responses could be. Yeah. So Josephine, You've asked a question, can one heal from trauma? My friend was in a mall back in 2017, and every September she gets triggered, you see? So that's what I'm saying. So it could be time of the year, month, it could be seasonal, depending on what you've been. But yes, we're going to get there, Josephine. You can heal from trauma. Healing is possible. Recovery is possible. Yeah. When I say recovery and healing, they are possible. It does not necessarily mean that it's going to be linear. So there's a time frame. Since 2017, she should have healed. It's not linear. It just means that there will be progress. So you have to just take it one step at a time. Am I better than who I was yesterday? Rather than saying, would he or she completely recover from it? So that's how you view recovery. All right. So we'll get to the healing aspect of how to recover from trauma, Josephine. Thank you for asking that question. So let's talk about signs of trauma responses. Easily triggered, like Josephine had said. Easily, of course, if you find out that you're kind of defensive, any little thing someone says to you, you just realize that you answer the question without, or you become so defensive without even processing the question that has been asked, like you are attacking the person. That could be trauma response. Getting easily triggered, of course, is trauma response. Losing capacity to connect with people, not being able to connect with people easily, being suspicious of people because someone has hurt you in the past and you could not recover from it. The person maybe, did something to you, cheated on you. So you find difficult to trust men. That's trauma response. And you believe whenever you see another man, you believe that all of them, they are the same. You generalize. That's trauma response. Maybe because you had an absent parents or something. Maybe your dad didn't have a father figure, and you find it difficult to have a good relationship with men as a female. Then that could be a trauma response. People pleasing could be a trauma response. Pleasing people, trying to do the best, going out of your way to help people, even when you don't have the capacity to do it, could be trauma response. You know why? Because let's just assume when you're growing up, you were raised by very strict parents, authoritative, either of the two. Anyways, they just give instructions. They don't dialogue with you. They give you instructions for you to follow through, and they would criticize whatever it is you're doing, and it appears like you're not doing good enough, you're not doing well enough. Whatever it is, they will criticize it. So you try your best, always trying your best to be the best. You want to please them, so to speak. Whenever you want to say your mind, they don't allow you to say it. They shush you. So that could build that personality of being a people pleaser in you, because you don't want to be shamed, you don't want to be lashed out at, you don't want to be criticized. So in order to avoid criticism, you don't stand up for yourself and you try to please people. That's a trauma response. That could be. Most people pleasers must have gone through some form of trauma in the past, because if you're not traumatized, you will be able to stand up for yourself. Like, I can't do this without feeling any guilt, because you actually cannot do it, but because you're afraid of what they would say, or you want to be in their good books, you continue to say yes. So people pleasing could be a trauma response. Another one is perfectionism. That could be a trauma response. Trying to do things the right way, the perfect way, trying your best so hard, becoming too critical on yourself, trying to do things right all the time, not cutting yourself some slack, pushing yourself too hard. Could be trauma response. Could be because you have suffered from upbringing whereby you're being compared all the time with people. They're telling you, oh, can't you see this person? This person is better, and you keep pushing just to show them that you are also good. Can't you see that I'm good? So you kind of develop that personality trait of trying to be perfect all the time. You apart from people criticizing you, you also become critical of yourself, like criticize your work, criticize your mistakes. You know, you don't appreciate yourself, you don't celebrate your wins. And trauma response could also impact your could also impact your well-being. So you can just realize that you have mood swings. You don't know why you have mood swings all the time. You just realize that you're not always happy. It could be that you're traumatized. You need to start reflecting on what happened in my past. Why am I feeling this way? Because sometimes you may not be able to lay your hand on what is causing it. If you know why you're sad, then it's easier. If you know why you're sad, it's easier. But if you don't know, then it becomes something that you need to now reflect on. It could be that you're reacting or you're responding to some trauma that you've passed through in your past. All right? Becoming too anxious, always on the edge, not quite sure of what would happen. You know, always anxious, always on the edge, always living life like, oh, your life depends on it. Could be trauma response as well. All right, so these are a few examples of trauma responses that I need us to start thinking about and reflecting. Why am I like this? It is so important that so that we don't project this. Sometimes you realize that you scream, you shout at your kids, you do some silly things, and you're wondering why you're like this. It might just be that that's how you were raised. That's just the simple truth, because children would always model after whoever raised them. Children will model after their caregivers. So if you realize that you're doing something to your offspring, you need to reflect, where did I get this from? And start working on how to be better, so you don't project the same thing to your offsprings. It's very important as parents. If you're a parent here, if you're an aunt, if you're an uncle, if you're a parent, then you need to start thinking on why you act the way you do, and ensure that you're not giving the same or passing the same trauma to your children. So I'm just here for us to understand that we need to end this trauma. We need to be the change agents. We need to be that person that will break the chains of trauma in our generation. Someone that our children, our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren would be proud of. Someone that would leave a legacy of mentally healthy society in our generation. Like, oh, my grandmom, your own grandchildren will say, my grandmom was the one that did this and did this, and ever since then we don't have this in our family. Something like that. They will be proud of you. Pass on the legacy of becoming mentally healthy, breaking generational trauma in our generation. All right. So I don't know if this is making sense to us. If this is making sense to us, I need us to put it in the comment box. I need us to write and let me know if you're following me. Now I want to talk about how we can recover. Josephine has asked if it's possible to recover, and I'm so sorry that your friend went through what she went through in 2017, but I have good news for us. It is possible to recover. But before I go on, I have another good news for us. Talk Mental Health, we have a conference coming up in October 14th. So it's about 13 days to go to the conference. So it's called Mental Health for All. I need you to go to the link in my bio and register for that conference. It is an amazing conference coming up. We've got Reverend Victor Adeyemi coming to speak. We've got Dr. Bonjubola Abiri coming to speak. She's a psychologist, she's a psychiatrist and a managerial psychologist. And myself will be there. It's a virtual event. All you need to do is just go and register, because it's free. It has been paid for. It has been paid for. Just go to the link in my bio and go and register for the conference. So this is an opportunity for you to come with your questions, to ask questions, because the theme of the conference is mental health for all, and we're going to be talking about what a lot of things about mental health, how people can access help when they are in need, what are the barriers to getting help when you are in need, how to break all these barriers, how to enhance your mental well-being. So you don't want to miss that kind of conference, especially when it's free. So you have no excuse. All you need is data to register, and just get data and make sure that you have lights on your phone so you can watch live on YouTube. All right. So please go to the link in my bio and register for Talk Mental Health Conference. Thank you. Thank you, Pastor Ruki. Yes, generational trauma should be broken. Yes. Dr. Jenny says, yes, you're making sense, Doc. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Now we'll not talk about how to break it. How can we break it? How can we recover from it? So number one, I want us to know that the brain can be rewired. I'm not a motivational speaker. I'm a psychiatrist. So I've been in the mental health field for over a decade now. So I know what I'm saying when I'm telling you about brain health, and when I'm giving information. Please take it seriously, because it's my field and I've been there for a while. The brain can be rewired through what we call neuroplasticity. The brain can be changed. As much as your brain changed to accept the trauma, the brain can be reversed to the pre-traumatized brain, if that makes sense. Thank you, Pastor Ruki. The brain can be rewired. So your brain was traumatized, your brain was developing. By the way, the part of the brain that controls how we think, the executive functioning, decision-making part of the brain, called the prefrontal cortex, is in front like this. It's called prefrontal, right? Is not developed until age 25. Age 25, where we're able to decide on what to do, make decisions, make the right decisions, know what is called social inhibition, not act impulsively, because that's what you want to do as a child while you're growing up. As an adolescent, you want to do something, but you also make some decisions. But that part of the brain that will tell you that, oh, this is not the right thing to do, or I can delay this, is not developed until 25 years. Just imagine, 25 years. So imagine anyone that is less than 25. The person now goes through trauma. There's no way that part of the brain will be well developed. There's no way. So it becomes so that's why sometimes some people, they find it difficult to cope. They now use a lot of maladaptive coping mechanism, like use of drugs, substances. You don't even want to imagine how we have to deal with a lot of clients in the hospital. And that's why I'm here to let us know that as little as trauma can impact on someone's well-being for the rest of their lives. So parents, if you are here, we need to do right by our children. If you are traumatized yourself, you need to start working on getting better, because majority of mental illnesses start before the age of 15, about 50%, and 75% by 18. 75% of mental will start by age 18. So imagine and we know mental illnesses are chronic in nature. If mental illness are started at that early age and we don't get to treat them, how much impact it will have on someone's, like your prefrontal cortex that has to do with making decisions is not even developed. You already have mental illness, and then you now continue like that for the rest of your life. People that are already even old, let's say in their 40s, getting mental, it could impact on them, but at least they've done something. If you're in your 40s and you have depression and it impacts on you, at least you would have maybe gotten married, you to finish your academics and all. But when somebody is like less than 15 coming out mental illness, they might still be in school. They will perhaps drop out of school. They may not be able to get a job, and that could affect their life for the rest of their lives. That's why I'm saying we need to break generational trauma. Because all these little things, exposure to trauma, are what triggers mental illnesses. We need to beware. Parents, if you are here, parents, uncles, aunts, we need to be intentional about reparenting ourselves so that we can parent our children right and prevent mental illnesses in them. All right. So yes, recovery is possible. You can recover from generational trauma. You can recover from trauma, and you can break that generational trauma. You can break the chain. You can be the change agent, like I have said. All right. So one thing you need to know is that no matter how traumatized you are, no matter the level of trauma you have experienced as an adult, maybe in your past, no matter who was the cause of your trauma, as long as you're an adult, your healing is your responsibility. It is your responsibility to take care of yourself. It's your responsibility to get help. It's your responsibility to recover. So we need to first of all own that and stop blaming people. Oh, my parents didn't do right by me. Oh, my teacher did this to me. Oh, this. We need to stop the blame game. Now that you're an adult, take care of yourself and heal from this trauma. Because if you continue to blame, then who will take the responsibility for you? Because recovering from trauma requires you owning it, that yes, I am traumatized and I need help. But if you continue to blame people, then you will be thinking they should be the one to help you. But you have to be responsible for your healing. You have to own it. Yes, I know I'm traumatized. Yes, I know I've done this in the past, but I am ready to make a change now. This is my time to make a change. And you will have to be responsible. You have to be responsible to get that change, for you to get that change, for you to recover from trauma. Yeah, thank you, Pastor Ruki. Stop blaming people. Stop blaming people. So let's the first thing we need to do is become aware. That's number one, self-aware that there's trauma. Because some people don't even know they are traumatized. You think, oh, because you like people, you are doing people pleasing. It's trauma. So you need to first of all become, number one thing you need to do, be more self-aware. Be more self-aware. How do you become more self-aware? Reflect on how you behave, how you think, how you behave, and how you react to things. You need to start perhaps writing it down. Why did I do that? Why did I become defensive? Somebody said something, before you know you have already started, why am I like that? Become more self-aware. Write it down. Write those things down. Why am I like this? Why do I think this way? Why is my thinking different from the way another person would think? Become more self-aware. So becoming more self-aware would solve like 50% of the problem, because it's a problem that you're aware of is what you would find solution to. If you're not aware of the problem, then you perhaps would not think it's a problem and you won't look for solutions. So number one, reflect on how you think and behave and make sure that you're more self-aware. Don't take it beyond that. If that's the only thing you take away from here, all right, if that's the only thing you take away from here, just know that Dr. Adeola, I need to start working on becoming more self-aware, because it's going to go a long way to help you recover from generational trauma. So that's the first thing. Number two, you need to be willing to get help. Sometimes I wonder why people say, oh, I cannot share my feelings with this person. I cannot speak to a therapist. I don't even know the person. I'm like, you are the one that needs help. And anyone that is a professional that would be willing to help you, you also need to be open, because that's how to heal. You have to be open to speak. I know that building therapeutic alliance, which is the relationship between a therapist and a client, it takes time, but both people have to be ready, to have that relationship. Like you need to be committed to it. So I've had a client that we were supposed to have like 6 to 8 sessions, but he never showed up. So he kept giving one excuse. So anytime there's time for the session, there will be one excuse. And then we did not even form that therapeutic alliance. I could not help him. Unfortunately, I couldn't help him. And then I had another one that would always be there. Despite what she was going through, she would always show up. Therapeutic alliance is important, and it is not, your therapist is not a magician. I won't just come to you and say, oh, be healed and do one magic and all. It's a lot of effort, and that's why if for any kind of intensive psychotherapy you want to do, you need to be psychologically minded. There's something we call psychologically mindedness, whereby you are aware that there's a problem and you are willing to help. You are willing to get help, rather. You're willing to engage. That willingness has to be there. That's why it's difficult when a client is abusing substance. It's difficult to get them through therapy, because you need a clear mind to go through. It's work. Therapy is work. It's not something that somebody is work, real work. And if you want to break generational trauma, you need to be willing to engage and get the help, and commit to the help. They give you homework to do or assignment to do. You have to do it. Get it done, and you get it done on time. That's how you start to heal. All right. Thank you so much. I can see a lot of people are commenting. If you have questions, please put in the comment box. But I'm going to share the last point for today's session. The last point is that you need to give yourself grace. So Josephine has asked that since 2017. It seems like our friend gets triggered every September because that was when that thing happened to our friend. The truth is that some studies have said, some people have said from the studies they they said that they can't really say that people will completely recover from trauma. Like there's someone that will 100% recover from trauma. It means that, like Yoruba will say, Oju akpa o le joju ara mo. I don't know how to translate that. Oju akpa o le joju ara mo, meaning that if there's a scar, then it becomes difficult. It's not going to look like the way it is before this car was there. You get what I mean? So what they're trying to say is that from all the studies they've done, they realize that people cannot really completely recover. So yes, you can sometimes still be triggered, but you need to give yourself grace and don't be too hard on yourself as you journey along your healing. I mean, as you go along your healing journey. As you try to recover, don't be too hard on yourself. Try to give yourself grace and be kind and gracious to yourself. For instance, if you feel like, don't say that, I've spent a lot and I've done this and still I'm not, what's wrong with me? What kind of person am I? Start, blaming yourself again. No, you've been through a lot. You even went through what you went through when you were perhaps much younger. And remember I said that the brain has not well developed when one is, it's that time of that the brain gets developed. So there's definitely going to be some kind of malformations in the brain, and it's going to take a lot of time and a lot of work on, for you to get that brain to function the right way. So you need to cut yourself some slack and give yourself grace as you progress in that journey. Be grateful for every progress you make, any little change you see. For instance, you are this kind of mom that is always very angry. You realize that you just have this mood swings and then you get angry for no reason. And just after you started going through therapy, you realize that there's a little bit of change. I'm not very angry anymore. I don't shout anymore. You need to celebrate yourself. Don't look at I want all the problems to go away. No. So part of giving yourself grace means that for every little progress you make, celebrate, hype yourself, make it seem as if you've won $1 million. Celebrate yourself. That's how because you give yourself, you reinforce that behavior. So when you celebrate yourself, what you're trying to do is that you're doing something like positive reinforcement. It's one of the psychological strategies that we use. It helps to reinforce that you appreciate yourself for that. Next time you realize that it becomes easier for you to do it. But if you keep associating anything you do to shaming, to blaming and all, you will realize that you continue to do that thing in a negative way. So you need to continue to appreciate yourself, be gracious unto yourself as you go along that journey of recovery. So I hope with this few points of mine, it's been almost an hour that I started this live. I hope that I've been able to convince you that it's possible to break generational trauma. And I hope that you're going to apply all the things that I've said to yourself and to people that would watch, your friends that you would, recommend to watch this. So tag them, let them share this video, let them know that it's possible to break generational trauma and it's possible to raise mentally healthy individuals in our society. Please don't forget Talk Mental Health Conference, October 14th. So we have about some 12 days to go now. Go to the link in my bio. You see it is the first thing on the link tree. Just click and register for Talk Mental Health Conference. If you're just joining, I can see Sandy joining. Please go and watch the replay. It's an hour, teaching, but I believe it's going to bless you. It's very interesting. You need it, and you also need to share with your friends. Thank you so much, Ambassador for Christ. Thank you, African Parents Hub. Yeah, Josephine said, I agree that we can't completely recover because I imagine I mark is left. My friend, the mark is left. My friend was depressed, was in medication. She's been through therapy, and I believe our awareness is helping her deal with the trigger. Fantastic. Yeah. So, and I think we just need to get ourselves familiar with that. Sometimes we can't totally heal like 100%, but whatever it is that we can progress we make, we need to appreciate ourselves for it. All right. Thank you to Pastor Ruki for putting out those points. Thank you so much. Thank you. I love you. Please make sure that you enjoy this new week. This new week is going to be a blessed one. Right, and it's a new month. It's going to be a blessed month for us. Let's ensure that we become proactive about our mental health. Let's be intentional about our mental health. Let's take care of ourselves. All right, and let's be comfortable with putting ourselves first and prioritizing ourselves. All right, so that will be all for now. Bobby Wonder says, all I can is no be one day. Yeah. The truth is that you can't recall everything can be done in a day. We need to understand that, and I think that's part of trying to cut ourselves some slack rather, and giving ourselves grace as we progress in this journey. We need to be kind to ourselves and be compassionate as well. All right, so that will be all for now. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of no, it's not the rest, it's the beginning of the week. Enjoy the week and enjoy the new month. Have a nice week, and don't forget to be intentional about your mental health. Bye.